Following World War II, a global space race emerged. During the initial age of space travel, many countries launched animals into Earth's atmosphere to study their experience. Russia and the United States sent insects, rodents, dogs, and primates. Meanwhile, France remained the only country to send a cat named Félicette into space successfully. For decades, this achievement was overlooked and Félicette was mistaken for another non-existent cat. She became the first and only feline to experience weightlessness in space. The realm of space travel was largely uncharted during the mid-1900s. Researchers had limited understanding of what was possible. In the unknown, the Soviet Union and the United States took the lead in exploring this new frontier. France also sought to participate and gain recognition in the conquest of space. At the time, it was too early to send humans into space due to unforeseen risks and engineering challenges. Therefore, countries opted to conduct biological flights where animals were sent into orbit instead. France joined this effort by launching living creatures into space to study the effects of space travel and the experience of zero gravity. It wasn't until 1961 that France became the third country to launch an animal, a rat named Hector, into space. This event occurred a few years after the Soviet Union sent a dog named Laika into space, and just a month after the United States launched a chimpanzee named Ham into space. Immediately after their experiment with rodents, the French government established an official agency to oversee the country's policies, called the
Centre National d'Études Spatiales,
or CNES for short. The agency's first focus was on the rockets known as Véronique. Véronique are narrow rockets that launch into space and then free fall back to Earth. The CNES improved the rocket's power and carrying capacity, which allowed the staff to shift their focus from testing rats to testing cats. With prior knowledge of experimenting on cats, the agency acquired 14 cats from a dealer who rescued them as strays from the streets of Paris. For the next 2 months, the cats underwent extensive space testing to determine potential candidates. To eliminate any emotional attachment to the cats, they were not given any names. Instead, they were identified by numbers. Similar to the rats, the 14 cats underwent a 10-hour surgery to have electrodes implanted in their brains and skulls. This procedure enabled researchers to monitor their brain activity during training. The cats' training, similar to the rats, simulated conditions during a spaceflight. For 15 days, the cats spent 1 to 2 hours inside a compression chamber. Inside, they sat in box containers within a centrifuge that spun at high speeds to test their tolerance to G-forces. Additionally, loud sounds similar to those of a rocket launch were played to assess the cat's reaction to the noise. 8 cats were narrowed down for their calmness, although one black and white cat identified as C341, or Félicette, overcame the training with minimal stress and weight gain. She was selected for the first mission on October 18, 1963. Before the flight, Félicette was transferred from the laboratory to the launch site located in the desert of post-French colonial Algeria. This site served as the official launch location for all past and future missions by the French government. On the big day, 30 minutes before takeoff, Félicette was placed inside a specialized container in the nose cone of the rocket. Inside, devices were strapped around her to record her brain activity, heart rate, and vocal sounds. At 8:09 a.m., the Véronique AG-147 rocket lifted off, embarking on a suborbital flight with her on board. During the takeoff period, Félicette's bio-reading showed that she was in distress due to her elevated heart rate and rapid breathing. Once she reached zero gravity, her state of shock was no longer reflected in the data. Her vital signs stabilized and she made no sounds during her 5 minutes in weightlessness space. As planned, after the rocket reached an altitude of 157 kilometers above Earth, the nose cone exploded, separating from the rocket. Félicette's heart rate reading was the most intense as the cone plummeted and tumbled rapidly back into Earth's atmosphere, fluctuating between 9 and 7 G-forces. Halfway through the fall, a parachute opened, safely bringing her back on the ground. A helicopter recovered Félicette and the nose cone a few kilometers from the launch site. French researchers evaluated her condition and found her to be healthy and stable. News of the mission spread worldwide, and Félicette and the staff became a sensation. However, the hype did not last that long, as photos of her with electrodes on her head appalled many readers. For 2 months, staff at the lab in Paris conducted additional tests on her to examine the effects of space on her behavior, body, and brain. Sadly, near the end of the test, they had to euthanize her to assess areas of her brain and the effects of implanting electrodes. After the examination, researchers found no issues with the electrodes in her brain. Therefore, she could have lived a regular, happy life if not for her evaluation. 6 days after Félicette's mission, France attempted to launch a second unnamed cat into space using the Véronique AG-150 rocket. Unfortunately, the rocket became unstable and exploded shortly after takeoff. Following the incident, the recovery team took 2 days to retrieve the missing cat and the nose cone. Succeeding those flights, France acquired 2 powerful and larger Vesta rockets, which prompted the country to begin testing monkeys instead of cats for future space flights. However, in March 1967, organizational and policy changes led to an end of biological flights. Although Félicette's fame was brief, misunderstandings arose because of the media. They nicknamed her Astrocat or Felix after the cartoon cat, which led to a rumor stemming from the headline. The rumor was that another cat named Felix was first chosen, but he had escaped the lab before the launch date. In turn, Félicette took his place. However, in 2014, we learned that Felix never existed from Dr. Jared Chatouillet, a surgeon who was part of the space program experiments. Félicette's remarkable story remained largely forgotten for decades until 2017. After discovering her achievements, Matthew Sergey Guy, a creative director in London, launched a Kickstarter fundraiser to honor her bravery with a statue. Thanks to the support of 1,141 backers, 43,323 Great British pounds were raised for her memorial. As promised, the statue, created by acclaimed sculptor Gil Parker, was installed in the Pioneers Hall of the International Space University in 2019. To this day, Félicette remains the only cat ever to travel in weightlessness space. It is depressing to learn that animals in the past had to undergo these tests, but we would not be here without their sacrifice. I am grateful to have found Félicette and share her story. I would appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe. To learn more about this story, all sources are in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would like to thank you for watching.